Hi guys, welcome to another Jungle Connect, and today I have a very special guest with us, Dwight. And the reason why I chose him is I always, I'm like telling to entrepreneurs when I speak to them, and guys bootstrap, go for profit, and they always say, how do we start a company without funding? How do we start a company without any backing and stuff? So here I have somebody who's very, very inspirational. So he
Mhm.
started as an Uber driver, and now he runs the largest ride sharing company in Trinidad and Tobago. And please welcome Dwight. And hey, Dwight, very nice to have you here. Thanks for the time.
It is a pleasure, and thank you all for having me as a representative for my company, TT RideShare. Um, yeah, it has been a great journey for the last 2.5 years. From as you said, my team, the founders of TT RideShare, we all used to drive Uber while Uber operated in Trinidad. And when Uber left, they literally left with a day's notice. Okay, well, we are pausing operation from tomorrow. And literally by midday tomorrow, you have your Uber app, you're on a trip, and then that's it. No more trip. They picked up
Wow,
and
man. I've never heard this kind of story any country.
yeah,
So
it's the thing is they operated in a this is one of the smallest territories in which they operated. Um and when they left, it was very, very bitter. It was challenging because me personally, I bought a vehicle just to drive for Uber,
yeah,
right?
a lot of people across the world bought a
Correct,
vehicle just to drive for Uber. Yeah.
correct. I mean, I work at the bank. I worked at a bank locally at the time. So for me, that was more of a side income, supplemental income. But I also bought a vehicle to do it as well. So you have me along with about 9 of the other co-founders. More or less, this was our source of either full-time income or supplemental income for living. And when we kind of got that today for tomorrow, things popping up and going. Um, for us, it was okay. What do we do? Should we petition to try to get Uber back in Trinidad? Should we wait to see if somebody else does it? And literally within that same day, we had a meet. We had a meeting. And then the following day, it came down to about 10 of us that came together and decided, you know what, we should do something. We can come up with our own app. So we were looking at developing our own app and what it would take, what the cost would be. A lot of brainstorming within that day as to the route that we can go. And that was about the end of May, like the last 2 days in May of 2018. Um, we were looking at different white label solutions, and then Jungle Works came up, right? So we saw that opportunity with Jungle Works for a white label solution, and I was like, hey, you know what? This is something that could work. There were a few other apps that we were looking at the time, and you all stood out to us as being, you know, maybe we should try this one. They look really in line with what we would probably need, and they look like they can do it pretty quick. And as a matter of fact, we launched about 3 weeks after Uber left Trinidad's market. Um,
So in 3 weeks, you were like live and ready to
we
go.
were live in 3 weeks. Literally, Uber
Wow,
left
man.
the States, not of May, I believe, and we launched our app in the store on June 22nd. And I remember the day because there was a massive earthquake, like about a half an hour before you all told us that the app was live in the store. So it's like it was symbolic of a lot of things for us at the time. Everybody
Earthquake, like a real
was
earthquake.
a huge earthquake on that day. So
Wow.
literally drivers as well as the team was like, yeah, this is symbolic of something. Something big definitely gonna come out of this.
Well, in the hindsight, it was definitely a good earthquake, I would say.
It did shake Trinidad. Um, and we we were able to launch with, I mean, a minimal startup cost. We decided that we would reverse engineer the company. So we would start off small, undertake the operations on our own.
Tell us, how did you start? Like, you mentioned, like, how did you fund these operations? How did you bootstrap?
Right. So it was 10 of us, and I think our initial startup cost was probably total between the 10 of us. It's probably about 12,000 US. Pooled together from
So
everyone
just let me rewind it for you. So 10 founders starting with 1,200 US dollars each,
on
and
average.
they pulled it together and created the country's largest ride-hailing app. That's kudos, man. I mean, to be
We
honest,
did.
I bootstrapped, but I definitely spent more than that. So,
Yeah. Even for me, I've done other ventures, and I mean, the thing is, we saw the opportunity. There was a lot of risk in it. We weren't sure how much other new apps were coming to compete with us. When Uber exited, there was only one other ride sharing company at the time in Trinidad. Um, and we were like, you know what, can we really do this? There's a lot of young people on the team. We have a lot of people from different backgrounds. We had a lot of diversity on the team of 10, which kind of gave us a lot of drive. People come from different aspects of it. And the great thing about ride sharing in general is you have a lot of different personalities, a lot of people with different backgrounds and skills that do ride sharing. So we had a really good tool to help us start the company. Um, so as I said, yes, we started at with about 1,200 US per person as a startup. And from day one, within the first week, we had a lot of drivers kind of on standby waiting, for the next opportunity, because Uber left a really big gap there for us in terms of, how are we going to sustain our lives for the full-time drivers, and for the part-time one, such as myself, like how are we going to maintain and sustain, what we've kind of grown accustomed to for about a year and a half. So um, for us, we kind of looked at it as sometimes in adversity we get opportunities.
yeah.
So we definitely took charge of that opportunity and we launched from day one. Within the first week, we had about 300 drivers on board. And that kind of helped us snowball because those drivers, we had a lot of riders as well that were waiting for something. And when we launched, they were
Likewise.
ready to go. They,
So let me ask you the second question here. Because you mentioned the riders. How did you get your first riders? How did you market yourself? How did you get the word out? Because that's the
um,
biggest challenge for most companies.
right. And the thing is, marketing, by and large, because we had a lot of drivers who had lost opportunities, and they were just really waiting for somebody to come in. They were a big part of our driving force. We would not be where we are without the vast number of drivers that we had marketing and pushing the brand. Because at the time, if we get some testimonials from somebody drivers, how they felt when we launched, it really gave us an additional drive because when you started to see the impact of us just starting up and people starting to feel some sense of, hey, you know what, Uber's gone, but we have something new. It's something local. We have a lot of young people on the team. I myself, I'm 30. At the time I was 28, so we had a lot of young people with a lot of vision. Um, and some ingenuity as well as a lot of knowing
Hard.
how to market and network. So we got a lot of traction based on our marketing and networking. One thing I will say, within the team of 10 that started the company, I think the majority of us had about, well, not me, because I did it on a part-time basis, but the majority of the shareholders and co-founders, they did in excess of 2,000 trips per person. So a lot of them, they were there from the day Uber started in Trinidad. So they had a lot of the ride sharing experience within our team. So we knew what the drivers expect. We knew what the expectations are from riders, as well as the network that we built up over the time. That gave us an additional edge. And it gave us a competitive advantage in
So
terms of
basically, was your experience in the space that helped you. So
We did.
sure.
We did.
And
We
so with that, I want to understand what's your business model. How do you do you take a percentage from drivers? How do
we
you operate?
we do. And the thing is, the price point was also a major selling factor for us. Because as I explained, when Uber exited, we don't really talk about Uber very much, but for the purposes of understanding of your audience, um,
Sure.
because they're familiar with ride sharing, there was one other ride sharing company that had a percentage. They took a commission of 30%. While they were here, they had a margin of 25%. We decided that, you know what, we're a young company, we're new, we're a startup. We would go with 20% commission for drivers. And a very huge driving factor of that is we allowed drivers to drive for free for the first 3 months. So they didn't pay any commission at all for the first 3 months. So that
This is the reason why they all came to you and started marketing the brand.
correct. They got 100% of profit. So day one drivers, whatever trips they did, we would have run the operations and they would have driven the service and they would have gotten 100% back of the trips without paying us anything for the first 3 months. So that in itself gave us a lot of leverage. By that time, our price point was really good as well. Our price point is, I think, one of the things that define who we were. We don't really run dynamic pricing unless it's really necessary. Um, that keeps riders. That keeps riders, understanding what the expectations are for the service. So
Sure.
that gave us a really, really, really big edge. In terms of growing the service for drivers and riders. And we run different incentive campaigns month over month to keep drivers, involved with the company, as well as we create a lot of partnerships, a lot of local partnerships. And
Yeah, that's also key.
we are all local. We are all from Trinidad. Everyone from the team that I work with, um we operate as our board operates as the CEO of the company. So we are an executive board of shareholders um of four. So four of us on the board. I'm the chairman, the executive chairman. And I have three other directors that work alongside me. Um, and we use a lot of our leverage and a lot of our network to create partnerships and create opportunities. And it's not perceived value we give actual value to persons. So
Yeah.
because when you give actual value instead of just a perceived value, you go beyond just the rose-colored lenses that people look through. You really give people a sense of safety, a sense of security, a sense of this is a local company, this is us.
Yeah.
You know,
That's a
the
true partnership. You're giving something back to the partners.
correct,
They are giving you the transaction. So makes sense.
correct.
So also, tell us how did COVID affect you and where are you? Are you kind of fully recovered or you're not? What's the journey that has been like in the last 9 months?
So pre-COVID, looking at the global numbers for rideshare and in total, pre-COVID, there were studies that basically said ride sharing would grow by about 300% between 2020 and 2023 globally. For us, we definitely were seeing that growth because when COVID came, it was just after our peak time in Trinidad, which is carnival time. Our carnival is one of our biggest um, local exports of our
Yeah.
culture. And COVID came in March when COVID really hit, and we felt the impacts was in March, which was just on the heels of Carnival, which is February, which we have a lot of foreigners coming into the country, and they are accustomed to ride sharing. We were
Yeah.
seeing a lot of growth just up until then. And by the time March came around, um, I would say we lost about close to about 90% of our capacity, traveling capacity, within that first month, which was
Wow.
really tough. Um, which left us in a space of what is going to happen now. Um, but that was because our government locally implemented a lot of restrictive measures to keep the company and the economy safe, right? The country itself, we went on a more or less a go slow where there were only essential workers operating, and anything recreational basically shut down within that first month or so. There was some easing of the restrictions
You
in
guys
the
are big party people, right? So it must
Yo,
have been.
we are really big party culture. Our people, we are rich in culture and heritage, right? And we are very party centric, I would say. So coming off of Carnival, moving from like the ultimate party event,
Yeah,
which is about a
exactly.
month, to restriction where you literally can't leave your home. And there are persons, it's all for the greater good, yes, but it did create a bubble for a lot of us. A lot of companies weren't able to weather it. A lot of schools to this day never reopened. Um, and we were able to actually, when we saw the easing of the restrictions, we were able to, show persons the value in ride sharing because our transportation network in Trinidad, they changed the capacity to 50%, right? For public transport. With ride sharing, you more or less have your own vehicle. So persons take a lot of comfort in that. You're not interacting and mingling too much with the general public. That side of it, from the COVID safety measures, we put out a lot of information. We put out a lot of guidelines for us what we're willing to accept for drivers and riders. And that in itself kind of got our numbers back up. Persons felt comfortable using ride sharing as opposed to traditional taxis in some aspects because you don't have that intermingling with persons. It's restricted. It's you alone in the vehicle. Our drivers sanitize. They're advised to sanitize their vehicles after every trip. Keep hand sanitizer, mask. Mask is something that as soon as the government started to tell us, talk about the use of mask and the benefit of using the mask was something that we were on board with and we pushed our drivers. So
Sure.
it helped us stay on top of where we needed to be to keep the company safe, to keep drivers and riders safe. And that in turn started to bring our numbers back up gradually. So we're not quite back at our pre-COVID numbers as yet, but we're definitely heading in that direction. I don't think we will really get back to that until we have a vaccine globally. But we still see, ride sharing numbers continuing to grow. Every time our government issues a new release on our measures, our COVID security measures, we see a shift in our line, in our graph sometimes. So it's something we're all cognizant of. But there's only so much planning you can really make around those types of measures the government need to make to keep the population.
Sure. So Dwight, what are your future plans? Any plans to get into delivery? What do you think? How's the company looking into future?
All right. So actually, there are a few things that we have in the pipeline that we are launching out with. Um, One in particular that we are currently is something called corporate rights. That's on the platform that allows corporate companies to actually maintain a corporate wallet where they are able to manage and monitor analytic revenues within a company. So essentially, um, say you have a bank, for example, the bank would have a corporate account, and more or less they can add persons onto the corporate account, corporate users that would use from their balance trips. So they are able to monitor um, the
Their
usage
employees, the usage of the. Okay.
correct, and as well as keep in line with what they generally do for transport. Because a lot of people they have their own private transportation setting up. But we have volume, we have drivers, we have a market that is growing. So providing that opportunity for corporate customers is one of our main focuses for now. Um, on the delivery aspect, while we do have things in terms of TT Rideshare marketplace, it's not something that we have launched out. As for when we are going to launch that out, won't say just yet, but we have something in the interim called concierge ride, which is a delivery service that does not operate as a marketplace, but it offers a delivery option for patrons, for vendors who want to have delivery for their customers. So that is
So
something that
a
we are
B2B kind of model.
correct. So correct. So we are actually defining and completing that model within the upcoming week, and that should be launching pretty soon, right
I
on
think
the
it's a smart move because in delivery also customer acquisition is tough. So if
correct.
you get the merchants, I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of go through that route.
Correct. As well as it creates opportunities for the drivers in their downtime. So the delivery side is not on demand, um, as opposed to on demand taxi service, but
Mhm.
it would present the drivers with opportunities for work that is not on demand.
Sure. So Dwight, I have some questions for you. Um, so in case of partners, sometimes they have a different opinion. How do you kind of get them like on the same page? I mean, it's something that we see every day, even in our business. I think partners are very short-term focused. How do you manage that?
In terms of the company, in terms of the
The business
when
partner.
strategy, business partners, it is challenging at times, but we never lose sight of what the main goal is, which is to provide value to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So while we may all have our individual perspectives, um, me being one of the youngest members of the team, I bring my perspective. Also, I have the perspective of persons a lot more experienced than me in certain aspects. You do get the tug and pull at times, but at the end of the day, the dynamic of the board and the team that I work with, we work really well. Our dynamics mesh really well. I am not above being wrong. Um, and so being the
Sure.
chairman of the company, my board and my team, they are not above being wrong as well. So sometimes we may have a good idea, and our job is really to find a way to make it work in the best way possible. If we do something and it does not work, we're not about, hey, we are a young company. We have things that we are
It's
going
okay
to
to
do.
be wrong. So
We
so
allow
this
ourselves to make mistakes
yeah,
as long as we understand that we don't intend to continue making those mistakes.
sure.
There are a lot of things that we want to do, but we are also always mindful that we're a young company as well. We moved from being a team of about four last year. Now we have 9 staff members, in addition to the board running the operations of the company. So, in terms of creating opportunity, we actually took on 3 new staff members in the last month. So in terms of creating policy and guiding things, we don't just have ourselves as a board. We also have the input of our staff that are actually doing the work, and behind the scenes, we get a lot of input and perspective from them. You know,
Sure.
um,
Yeah.
one of the biggest problems we kind of have is the relationship between the company and driver, where they are partners as well. But it's difficult because one driver may assume that what he wants is important to what the company needs and is important to what the entire driver population
It's
wants.
always difficult to
But
balance that.
but while we understand the psycho-emotional needs of drivers and riders, we are also a company that runs on data. So we are largely guided by the data, as well as we do a lot of mystery shopping. We do a lot of customer feedback. We do a lot of free rides to customers in exchange for, mystery shopping. So,
Sure.
as well as we are all local. So I drive in a lot of rides. I take a lot of ride shares on a daily basis. A lot of people don't know who I am. They don't particularly care, and it really doesn't change much for the service knowing who I am as a person.
I used to do it all the time, earlier,
Yeah, so
and
I use that as an opportunity to kind of gauge what people saying. Sometimes you would have certain drivers that you're looking at for things coming in. You get your own feel and experience for that interaction as opposed to somebody just saying something. Because for us, we used to drive as well. I don't drive as much because I don't have as much free time. But we know that relationship and how things can be antagonized in relation between drivers and riders. And for us, we are always about bringing the balance and understanding. You can't pander too much to the riders without understanding drivers. And you can't pander too much to drivers without taking the riders into account. So it's always a balance. It's a tough balancing act, but it's something that we live through every day. And we do the best while trying to provide opportunity and value.
so Dwight, I have another question for you also. What's the aim of the company?
The aim of
So
the company. All right, so we aim to be technology driven company that is known for affordability, safety and security, and providing that value not just within Trinidad. We we aim to do it throughout the entire Caribbean. Because for us, the people and the culture define who you are as a company. We are young and we are growing, and we are really now in the defining stages of who we are and who we want to be. And who we really want to be is a company that is using technology to make the lives of the persons that we interact with and whatever territory we choose to go in better off. So
So I have another question for you. Sorry, there's one question for me. So
yeah.
is Jungle Works a product company or service company? So Aman, so it's for me.
Mhm.
I'll answer that. So Aman, thanks for the question. I mean, the answer is, to be honest, we have both. We have a suite of products, and on top of it, we customize it and we service on top
Mhm.
of it. Thanks for asking. And then there's a question for you.
Right.
What is the biggest challenge in cab business?
Um, the biggest challenge I would say is regulations. Regulation can't stop growth in a big way. Um, Legal parameters. Just like Uber, we face our own legal challenges in terms of how we should operate and how we have to operate within the confines of the law. The thing about us is we are not we while some places may consider us disruptive innovation, we generally do not disrupt the general transportation network of Trinidad. Um, I would say this, right? I think the biggest challenges Uber has with their model, which is our model, is they try to dominate the market for taxis and cabs, right? We try to work alongside them. So we
Sure, makes sense. I think for every ride-hailing company, the biggest problem is regulation, man. Everywhere.
correct, correct.
So I have another question. Sorry, man. There's a lot of questions, so I have to kind of cut you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So Akanksha is asking, what would be your choice for expansion? Which country next? Are you planning to go to another country? What's your plan there?
COVID has kind of put a dampener on a lot of the things that we wanted to do, but we have been looking at some of the Caribbean territories, starting smaller, um, Barbados, St. Lucia, some of the other Caribbean islands. One country I would say specifically kind of has us intrigued is Guyana. So Guyana is really close to Trinidad. It's a few miles away from Trinidad. Um, they are presented with some economic opportunities as a country, and we are trying to see how we can fit into that. So in terms of expanding, that is one of the main focal points for us in doing our feasibility study. And determine where we
What's the
want.
competition like in these countries?
What is
A
the
lot of competition like in these countries like Guyana, Barbados.
the thing is the general within the Caribbean, I'll be honest, the taxi services within the Caribbean, I wouldn't say it's very competitive. Now, on the advent of Uber leaving Trinidad, the competition locally has really grown. So when we jumped into ride sharing, it was us and one other ride sharing company. Now we have about 13 or 14 different apps that run ride sharing services in Trinidad on the heels of us doing it. So the competition is there's a lot of competition, but in terms of market space, it's an emerging market. So competition can never really be a bad thing in an emerging market. It gives the brand and it gives the spirit more notoriety when you have more people vouching for the spirit. So in the other territories, I can't speak so much for the other territories. I don't think there's much ride sharing companies in any of the other territories. Guyana has a big competition next week, I know that much. That would make it a bit difficult to penetrate. So that's why we've been kind of looking into the feasibility for us, but it's
Sure.
also one of the reasons where we see some opportunity.
Sure. So I think so. Let's take this one more question. So
Mhm.
that question is, what's your suggestion for a new startup? Like so for new people who want to start something, maybe in ride sharing, maybe in something else. What would you
Now,
suggest?
I would say this timing. Time is one of the biggest factors that makes a big difference in terms of startups, right? Some markets are saturated. It does not mean that you're not going to get opportunities in overly saturated markets, but be on the ground and pay attention to when you're going to see a shift in the market. Um, Especially COVID now, you've seen there's opportunity that COVID would present for new
Yeah.
startups because people are seeing a lot of opportunities where some people would have been falling behind. Um, Startups present a really good opportunity because you have a lot of young people now looking to venture into startups. They bring a lot of fresh perspectives into markets that have been there doing the same thing for a really long time. One of the things I would say pay attention to is the dynamic of your team, right? Team dynamics is one thing that can make or break. That is one of the key things to pay attention to. Pay attention to the starting team, the people that you decide to go into business with in a startup. Make sure that there's a clear understanding of what you all want to achieve out of the startup and make sure the persons on your team are aligned to what you want to do. Now, I would not recommend, and depends on the size of the startup, it all depends on the risk. The more persons you have on board, is the less risk you have to manage, right? But on the advent of that, the more persons that you have on your team is the more emotions that you therefore have to manage in terms of the decision making, the process and policy designs, ensuring that you have the right talents on your team is really important for a startup.
Sure. So just to sum it up, I mean, guys, there's a lot of new opportunity coming because of COVID.
Correct.
The way the world is kind of shut down and getting reset. I think
Correct.
this is the time to start things. But yes, team is super important, and be on the market, be on the ground, and really do your research well, right?
Listen,
So cool, man. So yeah, so I guess taken a lot of your time. So thanks a lot, man.
no
And
problem.
Dwight, it was really nice to have you on the call,
It was a
and
pleasure.
I definitely learned a lot, man. And just to kind of tell our Indian viewers, so guys, you know, Brian Lara is from Trinidad and Tobago. I just
Yes,
also found out just before
Brian
the call.
Lara, doing Bravo. We have a really big cricket culture.
Yeah.
We have a rich culture in Trinidad. Because of the diverse backgrounds, we are known for our diversity and our
So
culture.
hopefully, so hopefully we'll meet in the next carnival, man. Once the COVID is over,
Yes, definitely. I
I
will
would love
definitely
to
send you
come
an
to the
invite.
carnival.
Carnival 2022. I'll send you an invite. Definitely.
Okay. So thanks a lot, man. Thank you very much for the time. It was great, and I'm sure people learned a lot.
Thank you for the
So
opportunity and thanks for listening.
thanks a lot. Thanks.
All
Bye
right. I
bye,
hope
man.
that
Have a
was
nice
some
day.
insight to person
Yeah.
to they know. Um, I hope that I answered well enough for the person that
No,
asked.
no, it was great, man. It was great.
All
And it's
right.
just like a chat, I think it's a good way to kind of get in touch.
Correct.
So
Correct. Correct. Correct.
thanks,
Correct.
man. Stay
All
safe.
right.
Take care.
All right.
Bye
And
bye.
last, I would say for everyone, out of adversity comes opportunity. Just pay attention and look for the opportunities. And the way to continue winning is by getting more opportunities in a row, right? And once you're accustomed getting a good go at something, opportunities usually fall in line. So just pay attention, keep waiting for it. And you may not know when the opportunity is going to come, but put yourself in a mental headspace to be prepared for when the opportunity does come.
Sure.
Okay? And
Thanks
that's
a
it.
lot. Thank you
All
very
right.
much, man. Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye. Bye. Thanks, guys.